Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by my co-host Michael Cohen. The breaking news, although it seems that it's now news every single day, is the world laughing at Donald Trump, Trump's weakness. The fact that he caves all the time, the fact that he thinks that he can just post on social media in all caps and that that's going to scare people. That shtick is over. It's over. I mean, he managed to kind of get away with that shtick through the first term, ride it into the disastrous handling of COVID. But right now, the world is like, all right, it's like a pathetic fly that the world has to almost swat away, and nobody takes him seriously. And I know our viewers are probably like, that's obvious. You know what? People in the world were still February. Oh, right. What's he going to do? Does he really mean what he says? March. Yeah, he seems like he's not going to do these things, and he's always going to cave when the deadline hits. April. Oh my God, he's caving. May, pathetic fool. And we're seeing it across the world, right? You're seeing it in China. I mean, the breaking news, China announcing its new kind of 5-year plan where they're going to double, triple down on manufacturing in China after Donald Trump capitulated in the cave war against China. You have King Charles' speech from the throne today in Canada, invited by Prime Minister Carney, something that really would have been unthinkable, a speech from the throne from the actual monarch being invited into Canada, where I would say there's pretty mixed feelings about the monarch in Canada in general, but welcoming him because it was recognized as a kind of ode to the Commonwealth and a rejection of America. They also know Trump's fetish with kings and the fact that the actual king is there in Canada. And he was sending some implied strong messages
almost as much as Mark Carney did, Ben. You know, Mark Carney was very, very clear when he said, first and foremost, that Canada will never be the 51st state of America. That's number one. Some things just aren't for sale. He then went on to turn around and to state that, let me also be clear, that Canada is making concessions for all of its natural resources that they normally would be selling to the United States of America that we need. Our entire Detroit is predicated off of picking up, whether it's rolled steel, or talking about the lumber from the soft lumber from Canada, all of which they are now looking for new territories, new locations, new customers to purchase it. I'm going to tell you something, and I've said this on my YouTube show. I'm not joking now. Trump doesn't even realize how much damage he is doing right now to America and the American people.
You have the European Union basically trying to make the euro now the world currency. You have a competition that America just tapped out of because Donald Trump believes countries in Africa are shithole countries. Remember, Trump said that during the first term. And Donald Trump has these racist and xenophobic and horrific views about Africa. Africa's a major hub for technology, natural resources. And that's why you have the European Union, China, others making big inroads into Africa while the United States has kind of fully pulled out. You know, I did a video early this morning, Cohen, of the white Afrikaners in South Africa who think that Donald Trump's an idiot. Like, there was this whole great video, and I try to get my sourcing directly from South African news channels, and the white South Africans are like, this guy's an idiot. This guy's an idiot. Like, yes, there's crime, but there's no white genocide. And they're like mocking the crap out of him. And then you had this morning RT, Russian TV, mocking Donald Trump as well, the state media, because Donald Trump made this post that is a real kind of traitorous admission, in my opinion, Cohen, where Donald Trump goes, what Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, Vladimir Putin doesn't realize that if it wasn't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with fire, exclamation point. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, writes, good thing for Putin he has such a good friend in the White House to run cover for him while he continues to bomb civilians, right? I mean, it's the ultimate weak statement, because On the one hand, Trump is admitting that he's utterly betrayed Ukraine and NATO by helping Putin. And on the other hand, he's showing how weak he is to do anything to Putin, and that he's like, it's the worst possible statement. So here's what
can we show that RT, the Russian television thing one more time? Is that what you were going to do? Because this thing is great. I mean, President Trump warns Moscow, claiming Russia avoided really bad, and they making fun of him with the all caps consequences only thanks to him. Putin doesn't realize he's playing with fire. Trump's message leaves little room for misinterpretation until he posts the opposite tomorrow morning. They are basically calling him a putz. I mean, that's really what they're doing. They're making fun of him right to his face, from the all caps to, oh yeah, tomorrow he'll just change his mind again, going to show you that there is really limited leadership coming out of DC.
Cohen, when Putin and Trump spoke, Putin took the phone call in South Russia in an elementary school to show how meaningless it was to him, how small he thinks Donald Trump is. So he picked the venue of an elementary school. And during the phone call, he kept on mocking Melania, which Trump thought was praising Melania. And Putin would say, oh, Donald, you know that Melania has a very good reputation across the world. And here in Russia, you're so lucky that your wife has such a great reputation. And then idiot Donald, I mean, the guy's an idiot. You know, he goes and in his press conference after speaking with Putin, he says, you know, and Putin said that my wife has a really good reputation. And I don't know how much, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. And it's like, Donald, he is mocking you because Russian TV shows your wife nude photos all over Russia to mock how classless and how pathetic you've turned the United States into. That's what's happening in Russia. And if you watch Russian state TV the way I do to try to translate to our audience what the hell they're actually saying and how Trump's actions are viewed, they view Trump not just with contempt, it's with an outright mockery. They view Trump's cabinet as a bunch of clowns, and they sit there on their version of Hannity and Ingraham, and they laugh at Trump and his cabinet, and they mock him as though it was like The Daily Show. And then our state regime media, because that's what it is in the United States, Fox, acts like Putin's so tough, and they praise him, and it is so strange, the kind of script flipping that's taken place where you now have China acting like the United States and the United States acting the way China once acted, right? You have the U.S. state regime media like sucking up to Putin, and you've got Putin and Russia mocking the Trump regime and Trump regime.
Yeah, I want to jump in here and say something. You know, I know a lot about Russian television. It's basically called Pravda, and Pravda in Russian means truth, none of which, of course, is any truth. It's no more truthful than Trump's Truth Social posts. Let me tell you this, nothing on that channel, nothing in all of Russian television or Russian media gets past Vladimir Putin. Everything is run by Russian state. So therefore, if there is something, as Ben is talking about, and I am referring to, which is about mocking Trump, understand that that comes with and from the blessing of Vladimir Putin. So this is not some rogue, as Trump would say, some left-wing type of media outlet that he claims here is MSNBC, CNN, NBC. This is coming directly from Putin's mouth himself.
Then you have Donald Trump, then with all of his controversies and scandals, I don't want to lose sight of these. Like Signalgate. Like, let's just say the word Signalgate so that it doesn't lose from our zeitgeist here, that they were having communications about war plans on a Signal text thread, the way Cohen and I would use a Signal text thread to plan our podcasts. And then when we saw the war plans that were leaked, the Trump regime said these are not war plans. And then they said, but the military operation in Yemen was so successful, and then we should critically evaluate that. You had 7 Reaper drones that were shot down. 7 Reapers were shot down over Yemen. We had 2 F-18 Hornets that were mysterious things happened to them where they suddenly fell off the ships. According to the official reporting, we lost 2 F-18s. Hundreds of millions of dollars in military hardware was lost in a war against the Houthis, where the Trump regime also put out an edict refusing to allow casualty numbers to be reported. And then Donald Trump announced a ceasefire with the Houthis, who he praised in a press conference as strong and brave people. Could you imagine? So no. I don't want to buy the narrative that those operations in Yemen were successful either, because the objective data that I gives you paints a different picture. And let's not forget like Signal. So I just wanted to bring that up. But Cohen, you have Donald Trump at West Point wearing the red MAGA hat, speaking about trophy wives and how trophy wives are bad, but good for a little bit, and then bad. You have him saying that he doesn't like stealth technology. He doesn't think stealth works. You have him saying that he gave a speech at the Ohio State University when he gave a speech at Alabama University. He attacked the transgender community. He attacked former President Biden and Obama with lies and said Obama handed over hypersonic technology to Putin. Trump took credit for all of the recruitment of the Army grads before him, when necessarily, because they graduated 4 years program, they all were recruited under Biden. And you have Donald Trump saying that he rebuilt the entire military when he did not. You know, the message that it sends, just him with that red MAGA hat in front of our Army grads, I think we also have to understand the message that sends. And then when he's talking about stealth and that he doesn't like stealth, I mean, if you are in NATO or if you're our enemy like Russia, you're looking at this and you're going, oh my God, here, watch this.
And I've approved a $1 trillion investment, and that will be, again, the largest ever in the history of our country. And we are buying you new airplanes, brand new, beautiful planes, redesigned planes, brand new planes, totally stealth planes. I hope they're stealth. I don't know. That whole stealth thing, I'm sort of wondering. You mean if we shape a wing this way, they don't see it, but the other way they see it? I'm not so sure. But that's what they tell me.
So ignorant. You know, it's funny. I'm not conversant, for example, on basketball. I love to watch basketball games, but I couldn't tell you who's on really on what team. It's just not my thing, right? It would be like ABC or Fox News asking me to become an announcer for, let's just say, for the championship games. It would be, I'd be like, Hemina, let's talk. He has no idea what he's talking about, Ben. And it makes us, as you just said, it makes us as a country look totally pathetic. It makes us look stupid. But I want to share something with you as I watched this as well. As I watched it, something really irritated me. It got to me. Why is the audience clapping for certain things that Trump is saying, which is so fundamentally opposite of West Point Academy, what they stand for, honor, sacrifice, the Constitution? We're talking about the premier of military academies. And these young men and women, these cadets, these graduates, they're going to be leaders in our military going forward in years to come. And it blew my mind that many of them were going ahead and clapping at negative shit coming out of President Trump's mouth. That bothered me a lot. And that, to me, shows that we're in fundamentally a worse place than I even thought.
Well, there's definitely a fear that if they don't clap, or certainly if they show disapproval, that they'll get thrown out. So there is a kind of fear factor there. There is the trappings of the presidency, which it is a pomp and circumstance thing. When even when I would not.
I'm sorry, Ben. I can't accept that one. I agree with you. It's still the president speaking. Okay, great. When he gets up onto the podium, you can clap. It's still your president. I get it. But when he starts disparaging transgenders in the military, when he starts to disparage stealth technology, when he starts to disparage, our military accomplishments, which took place, previously under the Biden administration, you don't have to clap for that shit. In fact, you should boo him. You see, that's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of democracy. You have the right to turn around, walk right up to the president to his face and tell him he should go fuck himself in Macy's window, right? You have that right. Now, you can't touch him, but you could say whatever you want. You don't have to clap. You're not a SEAL. This isn't North Korea. This isn't Saudi Arabia or Turkey where, you're forced, or China where you're forced to clap. Shame on these kids.
I would say, Cohen, I agree with you. However,
I knew there was a however coming.
There is not a major difference right now between the United States and authoritarian regimes. I've put in posts. I don't believe at this moment, May 27th, 2025, I do not believe the United States is a democracy right now, period, full stop. I don't believe we're in a constitutional crisis right now. I believe that's past. I believe that we have an authoritarian regime right now, like the regimes that you mentioned, where you are forced to clap. Because if you do not, and I'm not saying that the way maybe in North Korea, you get shot for not clapping, but Trump would like to see that happen. We see the consequences. Let me give you an example. A lot of this Trump attack against Apple right now is because Tim Cook did not show up in the Middle East personally to kiss Donald Trump's ring during the Mideast grift tour. Yes, Donald Trump's could claim that he's upset. Oh, that Apple, you're building out facilities in India and you're building out facilities outside of China, when I know the Trump plan is to bring lower paying factory manufacturing jobs from Foxconn to the United States, which is never going to happen. No, the real reason why Trump took the retributive steps against Tim Cook was because he didn't fly out to the Middle East and personally kiss Trump's ring out there. So I would just argue, Cohen, that right now, those Army grads impliedly understand that if their behavior is not conforming to the regime, that the 4 years that they spent there and the sacrifice that they've made to get there could be at risk. And Trump has gutted military leadership like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley, who, by the way, Trump threatened with execution. Remember that when Donald Trump made a post saying that in other times what Milley would have done would have been subject to execution because he said Milley was involved in treason. So I think the people at West Point see that, and I think that there is, a indoctrination and a fear factor there as well, because I'll tell you, the West Point grads who I speak to who are now out, they feel very comfortable looking at it and saying and booing and doing what you should do and saying this was horrible and horrific. But let me show you this, Cohen, because let me show you the difference between Trump's speech on all of those topics versus former Vice President Kamala Harris when she gave the commencement speech in front of West Point. Because to me, this video of Kamala Harris isn't really getting played a lot, but to me, it also shows what we could have had here in the United States, but how MAGA will view everything she's saying as weakness. They'll view Trump talking about trophy wives and not knowing stealth as strength. The problem is when we care about objective data, strength is actually what Kamala Harris said. Having a diverse military, having a military where you can read books that you need to understand the world and have that understanding where you're not fearful of, if I don't clap, am I going to get thrown out? That's what makes the military strong. And the problem is Trump's model, like the Trump businesses that he bankrupted, has the same impact. Watch former Vice President Kamala Harris. Here, play this clip.
And to all the cadets here today, you stand on the broad shoulders of generations of Americans who have worn the uniform, including many barrier breakers and trailblazers. In fact, this year you celebrate the 75th anniversary of the integration of women in the military, as well as the desegregation of our military. These milestones are a reminder of a fundamental truth. Our military is strongest when it fully reflects the people of America. West Point, each and every day, America's service members demonstrate extraordinary skill, dedication, and discipline. They are willing to sacrifice everything to protect the lives and liberty of people they may never meet. And I believe there is no more noble work that a person can do than to serve our nation in uniform. And today, then, to the class of 2023, you join the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen.
But they weren't willing to sacrifice not clapping for hatred, for divisiveness, for ugly rhetoric that debases the institution that they just spent 4 years. I don't know. I stand by my position. There are still those that were in. It wasn't the same sort of rounding applause that Kamala Harris got when she talked about diversity and how the diversity makes West Point even better, whether it's women in the military or blacks in the military and so on, because each and every one of those cadets, each and every one of them have worked side by side with every single person that's represented in this country. Good for Kamala.
Yeah, and what Kamala Harris was saying, if you want to know why the Russian military is the second strongest military inside Ukraine right now, it is because their views of this all, and that's why they had to go to North Korea and try to get other troops as well, because their whole concept of we're just going to have a white fighting force, everybody looks the same, no woke this, and by the way, you can't raise any kind of legitimate fears or concerns up the chain of command if that offends Putin or it offends your general, because you could get killed if you say anything negative. So then the leadership is not getting the best counsel and guidance. Mm-hmm. They're getting the worst. That's why we see authoritarian regimes topple the way we do frequently in history, because they're not actually getting the full information. And I could show you all the other Trump clips where he talks about trophy. I don't want to hear his voice that much on this episode, so I'm not going to play him. But the stealth one, I think, is important because it shows you at the highest level of what should be a commander-in-chief, he doesn't believe in stealth. He doesn't think stealth is a real thing or that it's effective. So if he thinks that's not effective, just think about his views on everything else, right? I mean, think about the way he actually views a golden dome. He thinks it's actually a dome that's gold. And you're like, oh no, I think he does. I think he thinks that it's literally a golden dome and he likes the word gold. How does he decide the military budget should be trillion? Because he likes the word trillion. And that's his decision making. He likes trillion.
And because it's the most amount of money ever spent. He thinks he's like a walking Guinness Book of World's Record, right? Where it's like Donald Trump spent the most amount of money on military. Donald Trump built the ... Donald Trump took over the ... Everything that he talks about. Remember those? He says this in every single one, like you've never seen before. Like never in history has something like this taken place. Under my leadership, there's never been anything like it. It's always these absolute of the best. Truth be told, it's not true. And second of all, it never comes to fruition.
You know, and we'll talk about this when we get back from our first break. But one of the major issues is that the media then prints big, beautiful bill, word for word. You know, they print they write those headlines, and it's just, they're not true objective things. And so when you saw the coverage out of West Point, fortunately, there's been this robust growth of independent news that we're leading here at the Midas Touch Network and Political Beatdown, where we can call this out. But otherwise, the coverage was like Donald Trump's message, a profound restructuring to make the strongest fighting force. And I'm like, I watched that. What are you talking about? You know, Donald Trump spent most of the day yesterday golfing, and he gave a little tiny speech in Arlington Cemetery, but most of the day he spent golfing throughout the day. He started the day by posting about radical left judges and attacking judges, where you have judges right now worried that the U.S. Marshals are not going to be able to protect them because they think that Trump's going to order the Marshals to hurt them. So they're like, we need to hire our own protection service because we don't trust this right now. You have judges like Judge Murphy, a federal judge out of Massachusetts, who found the Trump regime in violation of an injunction where the Trump regime sent a Burmese national to South Sudan. And Judge Murphy gave the Trump regime the opportunity to either bring the Burmese man back or conduct the immigration hearing, basically on the plane in South Sudan. And the Trump regime said, let's do it in South Sudan. We can do it here. Thank you, Judge. On the record. Then the Trump regime attacks the judge for ordering what the Trump regime requested that it wanted. And then the judge in the order said, you got to stop this because your rhetoric is causing harm to to our lives in the judiciary. And I ultimately blame this all the way right up to the, Supreme Court as well, for setting this tone where you literally didn't protect your own judges. You ceded your own authority to a tyrant in that absolute immunity hearing. All right, let's take our first quick break of the show. A reminder, it's only one quick break of the show too. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Just search at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast, wherever audio podcasts are available. Search Mea Culpa. And then check out Michael Cohen's Substack as well. Cohen writes some great Substack pieces, really great writer.
And I can't thank Midas Touch Network enough for reposting them and actually putting out great photos with each and every one of them. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And patreon.com/political beatdown as well. Let's take our first and only quick break of the show.
You know when the new pant or shirt becomes your go-to? That's exactly what happened when I picked up a few new pieces from Quint's. I mean, I'm wearing their pant right now. It's lightweight, it's super comfortable, and honestly, it looks sharp whether I'm on camera and out to dinner or just simply running errands. I also went on and grabbed their European linen shorts as well as a pair of their performance chinos. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that makes getting dressed easy. Why? Because everything fits well, it feels great, and it actually makes sense for real life. And here's what really impressed me. Quint gives you luxury quality without the luxury price tag. I mean, I'm talking 50 to 80% less. Let me say that again, 50 to 80% less than other brands that I've worn that claim to offer the same quality. They cut out the middlemen and work directly with top-tier factories that actually care about ethical manufacturing and premium finishes. I mean, you feel that the second that you put the stuff on. Now, I'm not somebody who shops for fun. In fact, I actually hate shopping for myself. But when you find a place that just gets it, like Quint's, it changes how you build your wardrobe. There's no stress, no guesswork, just really well-made pieces that you want to wear again and again and again. So go and elevate your closet with Quint's. Go to quints.com/beat for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quints, QUINCE.com/beat. Again, quints.com/beat. Go there now. You ever try launching a podcast with zero experience? Well, let me tell you something. It's like being tossed into a cage match with a grizzly bear, blindfolded, wearing clown shoes. Because when I started Political Beatdown with Ben, I thought, come on, man, how hard can this be? Script writing, logos, production schedules, ad deals, and don't even get me started on the tech setup. I mean, I feel like I was decoding a damn matrix. Now, if only I had Shopify when I launched this beast. Shopify is the platform behind millions of businesses across the globe, responsible for a whopping 10%. You hear that? 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. And my friends, that's not hype. That's fact. From big names like Mattel and Gymshark to folks just getting their hustle off the ground, Shopify's got their back. I mean, you want a gorgeous online store? Shopify's got hundreds of sleek, ready-to-go templates that make you look like a design god. AI tools? Yeah, they've got those too. Writing your podcast descriptions, jazzing up your images, maybe even making you sound smarter than you are. I mean, not naming names. And you need a marketing squad? Shopify's built-in tools let you hit email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever your customers are scrolling or doom scrolling. And listen, Shopify handles it all. Inventory, returns, international shipping. I mean, they are the ride or die business partner that you never knew you needed. So if you got a big idea or even a little one and you're ready to turn that dream into a reality, head over to shopify.com/beat. That's shopify.com/beat to start your $1 per month trial today. That's Shopify, shopify.com/beat.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. Hey, Cohen, Carl Quintanilla does a very good job at a lot of things, but he does a great job of kind of curating the key news stories every morning and throughout the day. And he has a great way of kind of aggregating and showing you these themes. So I want to show everybody the New York Times headlines or front pages just over the past few days, like 48 hours or so. So Carl Quintanilla goes, these are the New York Times headlines from just the past 2 weeks. And when I share these with you, I want you to both think about how the New York Times is normalizing this stuff and also that this just happened in the past few days as well.
I have a real problem with it personally. And I hope everybody that's with us right now has the same sort of animus and anger at all of that mainstream media for normalizing. I like to use the term because I developed the term, Ben. I coined it. It's called sane washing. All right. That's what they're doing. They are sane washing his stupidity and normalizing it at our expense.
So headline number one, auction to dine with Trump creates foreign influence opportunity. Doesn't even say conflict of interest in the headline, which would be putting it mildly, but it makes it seem like this auction to dine creates an opportunity, like a geostrategic opportunity, Cohen. All you got to do is join this auction and your country may get lower tariffs. Next headline, why Vietnam ignored its own laws to fast track a Trump family golf complex. also, when you take a look at this photo, and for our audio listeners, you can't see it, it looks glorious, right? It's like a celebration. You've got Eric Trump up there with the leaders in Vietnam. It looks like confetti is falling down. It looks like a celebration. And again, here the New York Times is not contextualizing that at all. And the crazy thing too is when you actually read the New York Times story about it, it's actually a good story that they wrote. And it's tragic. They did a lot of good, because the writers don't write the headlines or the themes, right. But the writer wrote a good story, I thought, about how there was, 5 generations of a family who lived in this area in Vietnam. They were buried, and their whole family was buried there in this Ho Chi Minh City area. And then Donald Trump wants to build his next resort right on top of it. Vietnam sees an incredible opportunity right now economically because of these tariffs to basically become the way that you can divert Chinese manufacturing into Vietnam, and then from Vietnam go directly into the United States, basically as a way to, I don't know, like in money laundering, you kind of clean what you're laundering, like a way to clean the tariffs, use Vietnam as a hub, and then Vietnam gets preferential tariff treatment by building this. So Vietnam ignored all of its own laws for approval, fast-tracked this Trump resort for $1.5 billion, and bulldozed over these families that lived in Vietnam. The next headline: Trump pardoned tax cheat after mother attended $1 million dinner. Paul Walsack's pardon application, citing his mother's support for the president, including raising millions of dollars into connection to a plot to publicize a Biden family diary. And by the way, that also comes at the same time that Trump just pardoned a Virginia sheriff who was handing out badges for money, $75,000, badges for money. And this guy was going to be serving 10 years in prison, but he was kind of a Trump MAGA sheriff. And so despite the fact that Trump's own DOJ put out a statement about what a bad guy this sheriff was, Trump's DOJ put out this statement March 21, 2025, how important the FBI and DOJ's prosecution of this guy was here, how important it was for public integrity. Trump pardoned the guy and said leftist radical scum judges, did this to him. There was also that Michelle Fiore, who goes by the name of Lady Trump, who Trump recently pardoned. She was on she was like a Las Vegas council member who said that she was raising funds for a fallen police officer who died in 2014, but she used it for like cosmetic surgery and for her daughter's, I forget what her daughter's something in cosmetic surgery. It didn't go to the fallen police officer. People in Vegas hated it. And she was Lady Trump though. So, she posed with the photos of her and the machine guns and the semi.
Yeah, Ben, one of the biggest problems that you have when it comes to this sort of grift is that Trump actually understands better than almost anybody how to affect a grift and get away with it. See, people like Lady Trump, she can't. People even like this sheriff or others, they don't have the same ability. Even the Trump kids don't have the same ability. You know who else didn't have the ability to do anything that I'm talking about? That's the whole Biden family. When you're talking about, what was it, Burisma, and you're talking about putting Hunter Biden onto the board, is it wrong? I don't know. I don't know what he knows about, about business, but why not put him on the board? What would be a problem with that? By the way, you're not talking about $5 billion, $6 billion, $10 billion, which is what I understand Trump has made since becoming president-elect. He was paid what everybody else on the board was paid. In fact, since we're going to share board seats, when Trump had Trump Entertainment Resorts, and I wrote about this in my first book, in Disloyal, when Trump had Trump Entertainment Resorts, even though he really had no voting rights and he had very limited interest in the casinos, it was on the third Chapter 11 reorganization, I remember a seat opened up and they wanted Trump to put one of his kids onto it. Now, Eric wasn't even in the running. It was between Don and Ivanka. And so they flipped a coin. I'm not joking. They flipped a coin to see who was going to get the seat. But the reason that they both wanted it is because it came with a $250,000 stipend for becoming a board member. This is Trump Entertainment, a casino, publicly traded company that was on its third Chapter 11 bankruptcy reorganization, offering $250,000 to each and every one of their board members. And I think the board was either 9 or 11 people strong. So I want you to put that into perspective when we're talking about what this grift is all about.
I think an important point, though, and I don't want to spend time Hunter Biden this because I don't want to look backwards, but it is an important point that you raised. So Hunter Biden went to Yale Law School. He was appointed by George W. He worked as a partner at a top law firm. He was appointed by George W. Bush to sit on the board of Amtrak. And he was a board member as well for, I think, UNAID, or United Nations Aid Agency, overseeing a $3 billion budget. Then when former President Biden was not running for the presidency and was not the vice president, it happened in the gap between that. Hunter Biden, like human beings, needed a job. And so the reason that ultimately Burisma was an attractive move was because Burisma was under the control, board-wise, this big oil and gas company, of Russia. So a lot of people aligned with the West, from Poland's Democratic, pro-democracy prime minister and others, wanted somebody on there to represent kind of Western values as a check against Russia. So that's actually what Burisma was all about. So they were thinking, well, who do we bring to kind of ensure that? And Hunter Biden had the bona fides because he had board seats and he was a renowned lawyer. And this was right around or before, right before,
Let's also acknowledge the last name didn't hurt. It was certainly some icing on the cake. And by the way, he has every right to sit on that board.
Yeah.
He is, by the way, he might be the son of Joe Biden, but he didn't ask him for anything. And that's the point.
But exactly. Look, I would probably say, that was the overwhelming reason, was that his last name was Biden versus another partner. I think he was a lawyer, and I could get this wrong, at Boyce Schiller. But it may be a firm like that. But it was a reason why they chose Hunter Biden versus someone else. But it was also during the time before now former President Biden ran. And then, of course, with the death of his son, Beau, with the death of his brother, Beau, and President Biden's son, Beau, Hunter Biden was so close to Beau. He then went into, fell into horrific drug addiction and then survived drug addiction. But to your point, Cohen, the only reason why I even want to bring that up is that someone like a Hunter gets completely ensnared in something where, what was the payment? Not an insignificant amount of money, but $500,000, for someone who was making that kind of, probably less than the salary he was making as a partner at the law firms when he was working there, versus we're talking billions here, billions there, crypto here, crypto there.
We don't even know how many billions.
We don't even know.
And they tell you, we're the most transparent group of people ever. That's the only reason you even know. Nobody has any idea how much money that Trump has made so far. All we know is that it's at a minimum $10 billion. Minimum.
Just even the announcement today that Trump Media, which controls Truth Social, right, that's not really making any money. I mean, I think it lost last year like a few $100 million. Like it lost a significant
$million.
It lost a huge amount of money last year, 100, 200, something.
No, 500 million.
And on about $4 million of revenue coming in. So it lost a lot of money is the main point here. On about $4 million in actual revenue. And that's, run a media company, right? I mean, I run a media company, and Midas Touch Network's a media company. I got to run it. I've got employees. I got to keep this thing going. Trump media, those are stats. But then they go, you know what? Trump media should get in the crypto game, in addition to what Donald Trump has done with the Trump meme coins and the Trump crypto cards and all of that. So now they basically want to do a raise. This was today, of about $3 billion, I think they announced, to basically buy Bitcoin and just raise money from people who could otherwise buy the Bitcoin themselves. So now Trump media will hold the Bitcoin that you or I or anybody could just go and buy the Bitcoin, because now they can actually have actual assets under management that they can then look to and say, well, here's the valuation. Look at Bitcoin. Now, if Bitcoin then rises, because as Trump's policies trying to do Bitcoin reserves, and now when the Bitcoin price rises, Trump's been basically handed through Trump media $3 billion worth of Bitcoins that he now takes a management fee for, that this is what Truth Social has. And so that just happened today. Now, I can sure as hell guarantee you that if Barack Obama or President Biden did any of that, this would be a front page story. There would be calls for impeachment. I bet you Democrats would have impeached Biden over any, and by the way, I would have supported those efforts. Why wouldn't I?
I don't know. They sent that 20-something-year-old kid, to prison for doing what sounds to me like exactly what they're doing here. What was his name? Sam. Sam
Bankman-Fried. The difference there were though, but so I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried, a whole other thing where he would basically say that he was holding, all of these digital assets, but then he had like a private equity company.
What do you think this group of grifters
people told? I don't know what it's going to. Here's what I know though, Cohen. I don't know what it's going to do or not. All I know is that on a Tuesday, May 27, 2025, after Trump just returned from a Mideast trip where he's accepted a $400 million gold-plated jet, and where he just held a crypto dinner with the top 220 wallet holders of the Trump meme coin. And we go and look at the event, it looks like the most deranged event ever. While we hear about the Trump resorts in Oman with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Vietnam, and now I hear Trump media is doing this. And yeah, maybe there's a story here or there from the media, but not a peep of outrage that this should be an impeachable offense and what the hell is going on. Again, that's why our network is growing the way it is, because we're calling it out the way it is. Look at the arc of this episode. But then, Cohen, with all of the things that we talk about, we then have to connect it to what the hell is going on with the American people. Because prices sure as hell are not lower. There's not peace in Ukraine in 24 hours. Housing is not more affordable. It is less affordable. 14 million Americans are about to lose their health care, about to be kicked off Medicaid. You're not safe if you're on Medicare. They're coming after that as well. They're coming after the Affordable Care Act. So people are about to lose their health care, their SNAP, their food stamp benefits. People are about to lose. We're about to head into hurricane season, and FEMA's totally gutted.
Education is being gutted on top of it. We're not
sending weather balloons up. We just see RFK Jr. and the head of the FDA this morning announcing that if you're under the age of 65 and the Trump regime considers you healthy, you're not allowed to get COVID boosters. You're banned from getting a vaccine that could otherwise be life-saving. And that's what's going on. While the Pied Piper of grift, Trump, is going around the world collecting for himself, and there's like this paralysis, this frozen. Not only that, like they're championing it in the media when they would go after Biden for the dumbest shit imaginable. And so you have to ask yourself, and this is Cohen, before you give the two-finger salute. I mean, is it what Goebbels said, that you tell the biggest lies, the biggest scams versus the smaller stuff that is just so big and so huge it can't be
Ben, listen to how you just ranted off 15 things. You didn't even scratch the surface of all of the stupidity, from the executive orders all the way to the Stephen Miller bullshit that is taking place on a daily, whether it's the stripping of First Amendment rights, whether it's illegal protests, which is something that only Trump and Trump himself can make a determination, whether it's trying to repeal the entire concept of due process, getting rid of habeas corpus. I mean, you can go on and on and on about all of the different things that this administration is doing on a day-to-day basis, and all for what? It's all to make us numb, so that you turn around and that the chaos overwhelms you, that you get what's called fatigue. It's Trump fatigue. I'm tired. I'm tired of every day waking up to Truth Social posts being talked about on MSNBC, on Fox, on CNN, exactly like this one. Don't take that first one down for a second, because this one really is supposed to demonstrate exactly what we're talking about. Happy Memorial Day. You're talking about a day when you are supposed to remember the ultimate sacrifice by individuals who laid down their lives, and the ones that are still out there protecting our democracy and our freedom, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. He goes on to talk about release prisoners from all over the world in our country so that they could rob, murder, and rape again, all protected by these U.S.-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick. This, my friend, you can take that down. I'm nauseous from it. This, my friends, all right, is exactly what Ben and I are talking about. This is not normal behavior, not by Trump, not by anyone. Forget about the President of the United States. If you saw this on a poster, on some, I don't know, scaffold board outside of your building in Manhattan, or it was sent to you in the mail, you would turn around, you'd throw it in the garbage, and you would say, the guy who wrote that's a fucking maniac. That's what you would say, because that is disturbing. It's disturbing, not even because it took place on Memorial Day, a day where people sacrifice themselves for the good of this country. And what are you doing? You're fear-mongering, you're gaslighting, and so on. So look, this is a really difficult one, because so many people deserve the two-finger salute. I'm not even sure, Ben, I need your help on this one. I'm not even sure that I can tell you who deserves it. Of course, Trump deserves it. He's going to deserve it every single day. But who else in this orbit is actually, other than Stephen Miller, who should go side by side with Trump on any two-finger salute, pushing this sort of nonsense? Thoughts, ideas, an A, B, C, D, all of the above?
I think I'm going to go with a wild card who we haven't even showed yet on this episode, but I'm going to go with a MAGA Mike Johnson. And I'm going to go with MAGA Mike Johnson, but I'm also going to go with a random MAGA Republican Congress member from the 17th Congressional District in New York, Mike Lawler, because to me, it's with men like that or people like that that enable a Donald Trump. You have somebody like a MAGA Mike Johnson who tries to bury his hate of humanity in religion and claim to be holier than thou, and to be so obsequious with Trump, he's completely, and utterly allowed for the decimation of our country, and then uses kind of religious statements as a way to try to justify what he's doing. And then a guy like a Mike Lawler, who's supposed to be, he came in as the centrist Republican in New York. That's how he kind of advertised himself. Yeah. I'm here to be the normal guy. And then he tries to do things and make TV appearances like, I'm just Mike Lawler. Oh, shucks. But when it comes to...
Yeah, I hear you. I'm sorry, Ben. I think I'm going to have to go along. Jeremy actually set up, and I'm going to have to go with one of our executive producers here, right, Jeremy, who turned around and said, look at the Trump kids. If we can go right back for one quick second to that photo of Eric Trump standing at the end in Vietnam with a freaking smirk on his face. I don't know if there's a way to blow that shit up. A smirk on his face as he's looking down. Eric couldn't find himself out of a paper bag, all right, with an instruction guide, all right? Instead, this schmuck is standing up there. He knows the only reason that they're getting this Trump family golf complex is not because of his hard work, not because it's justified, not because it's legitimate, but because they're trying to placate his daddy. All right, let me say it again, daddy. All right, and to ensure that Trump looks favorably upon Vietnam. So you know what? You can take that down. I'm sick of looking at his face. In fact, Eric, you get the two-finger salute for taking advantage and for grifting off of the United States of America. So, Eric, fuck you, dude.
There you have it. Everybody subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Wherever you just search on YouTube at The Michael Cohen Show, subscribe there. We're on our way to 5 million subscribers here. Cohen's on his way to 1 million subscribers. Subscribe to both channels. It's teamwork. It's a group effort. Also, check out Michael Cohen's audio podcast, Mea Culpa, wherever audio podcasts are available. Just search Mea Culpa on whatever audio podcast device that you use. Also, patreon.com/political beatdown. Check that out as well. Michael Cohen's Substack doing really good as well. Great articles, Cohen. And, we try to repost as many as we can on the Midas Substack as well because they're just so good. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate you as always. Shout out Beatdown Brigaders and shout out to the Midas Mighty.